Hello, everybody. How are you liking these tunes? Is that okay for you? Is it not too loud?
This is it, folks. We need you to
Here we are.
donation to help elect Kamala Harris.
Hello, everybody. So glad to have you on board. Love it. Yeah, I just thought I'd put some tunes on while I'm streaming, but I'd like you guys to let me know if it's maybe too loud, because then I'll put it down. Hello, Richard. Hello, Derek. Welcome. I'm in the Saturday night mood, like when I was young. I hope you're all prepared for the topic for tonight. You don't hear the music? Okay. Can you hear it now, Samantha? Okay, new song is starting. Hello, Vic. I have a photo of him back in the days Zandvoort DTM autograph with Mick Schumacher surrounded by autograph punters and bemused Norris, Jake Hughes, Mazepin, Harris, Newey, Callum Ilott, Joe, and Drogovic. Okay. Samantha, how's the music now? Slightly. Okay, I can turn it up more. Wait a minute. That's not it. Richard, did I make a mistake in the description? I can't change that now. But yeah, a typo. Okay, guys. So the topic tonight is who's gonna win the World Drivers' Championship, and then connected to it, we'll talk about the constructors as well. You know, just because it's fun. Oh, you hear the music only playing? Yeah, maybe I'm just gonna turn it off because it's annoying me slightly. Yeah, this is better. Hello, Vegas. Thank you for joining. Thank you for rattling my cage straight away. Always appreciate it. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is look at the actual standings, and I made a screenshot. Oh no, that's not it. Of the actual standings. So as you can see, we have Max Verstappen on 303 points. Lando Norris is on 241 points, and Charles Leclerc not shown on the picture, this picture, is on 217. So I did a bit of math, which is very hard for me. And the gap between Max and Lando is 62 points. Now, never in the history of Formula One has anybody, overcome a gap of 62 points. But then this is in the time when there was no sprint races and there weren't as many races. It's still doable in 8 races. Then the gap between Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc is 24 points. So now that's a gap that's doable. And then the gap between Charles and Max is 86 points. That's massive. So what does that mean for the standings? Now, normally if Max doesn't DNF and finishes every race pretty well in the top 10, he should be okay. The thing is that if everything goes like normal tomorrow, Max will extend his lead on Norris, because he was unfortunate enough to be hampered by a yellow flag. Now, there was a bit of doubt whether it was a yellow flag situation or not. And on the screen, it said a white flag and then a yellow flag, and he wasn't sure. He also made a massive mistake, He went over the curb, and then, yeah. But then seeing in Q1, the slowest times are so slow, he probably would have made it into Q2. So yeah, that's a big thing. Normally you'd say that Leclerc will make the gap smaller to Max, and definitely smaller to Norris. But we'll talk about that later. Let me go into the chat first. Okay. Vin Molen says, oi oi. People in Scotland don't say oi oi. They say ori. And Samantha says slightly. She's probably still talking about the music. And Gentilis says, yeah, it's the description. No worries. I'll change it later. Vegas says, sometimes I hear music playing only for me. And you looked. Yeah, that was a great prank. Samantha loves it when you prank me, as it turns out. And Daphne S says, Norris, he did poor. He did poorly. Well, it was unfortunate, And these things happen. Now, what makes the difference between a proper champion and a really good driver is what they do in the race in a situation like that. See, if Norris has an amazing start tomorrow, gets 2 people, stays out of trouble, gets an early pit stop to undercut, passes another 2 people, makes these tires work, then there's a safety car, he has another great start, and he finishes P5, P6, then he's a proper champion, especially if Max only gets the, P4 or something, which is very well possible. So yeah, Lando Norris is tested tomorrow. See if Lando Norris doesn't come any further than P13, P12, then I'm afraid that he's just not it. It's simple, because he has the fastest car. Piastri showed that, and normally Norris is faster than Piastri. Okay. Vegas says, howdy. It's a service I render for friends. That's picking on friends. That's what he's talking about. And he's reacting to the point system nowadays, that you can get 26 points in a race, and in a in a sprint weekend you can get 26 plus 8. You can get 34 points in one weekend. And Gentili says, how many races are left? There are 8 left. That's including tomorrow's one. But I have a list here that I'm going to show later when we talk about the rest of the schedule. Samantha says, haha, I can hear the music now, still soft but not annoying. Okay, that's good to know, Samantha. And Victor says, it's 2.5 races now. After tomorrow, it will be 3.5. Max is a 4 time. Yeah, Vic is very convinced that Max Verstappen will win the championship. And Daphne says, Norris will be getting points, but how many? And how many points will Verstappen win? Exactly, that's the question. Now, mind you that if Max Verstappen scores one more point than Norris, then in the next 7 races, Norris needs to outscore Max by 9 points every race. So again, without DNFs, I'd say Max is world champion. And Windmolen says, P.S. the 2.5, 3.5 needs at least 2-time major issues in the next 5 races. Yeah, that's what I just talked about, major issues. But then, a yellow flag during quali, that can happen to Max too, or someone crashing when he's still doing a final push lap. These things happen. And Gentili says Lando could struggle tomorrow. It will probably be a DRS change, right? Yeah. Jason Hassett, he talked about that today as well when we're texting. The DRS is a problem, and see, this year the cars are even closer to each other than it was the previous years. So even on that long straight, if you have a car that gives another car DRS and a car behind the DRS and a car behind the DRS, and Norris is behind that, then a lot needs to happen. But then you see with Max, in situations like that previously, he would just chuck it down the inside and force himself through. And I don't think Norris has that determination. If he tries to do something like that, then people won't move out of the way and they'll touch and he'll break a wing and his race is completely fucked, And Daphne says, and 3 spring races. I don't know what that means. And Windmolenjongen says, nope, not that sort of yellow flag, mate. I don't know what that means. Okay, let's continue with what I've prepared. So, yeah. There's many possibilities still left. Max has a comfortable lead. Now, with this lead, if the situation had stayed the way it was in Monza, with them being the 4th fastest car, the 3rd fastest car, then the championship would have been in real danger. But at the minute, the car seems to have more potential. Max was unfortunate in his quali run today. They've made a few changes in the setup just before qualifying, and unfortunately, it didn't improve the car, but it made it slightly worse. He says that tomorrow during the race, with a full tank, the problem should be over until more towards the end of the race when the car's lighter. A few things might happen with the temperature on the track. I haven't looked at the weather actually, but I don't think there's going to be any rain. But yeah, hopefully tomorrow, especially the first, say, 30 laps, the car will be not having the problem he had in qualifying today. And apparently it's being soft on the tires, the way they set up the car, not so much for quali but more for the race. So that might be a big benefit as well. And then for the championship, if Max outscores Lando by 10 points, then he's even more secure than he is now. So he needs to keep it between the lines. He needs to finish, and then the championship should be okay. Now, the P2 in the standings for Norris, that's another big thing, because I saw a tweet today from Lawrence, Law VS, and he said that if Max scores... No, if Leclerc scores a win and Lando Norris scores 1 point, Leclerc will have the lead in the championship, in the second place in the championship. And yeah, that's 24 points. So Leclerc win is 25 points. And Lando Norris, if he scores 1 point, so if he finishes 10th, then yeah. And if Lando scores the fastest lap and P10, then they're equal on points. And then I think, who has more wins? Leclerc has 2 wins. And Norris probably also has 2 wins. So yeah, then they need to look at how many second places. But I don't know who who would inherit the proper second place then. So, yeah. Yeah, the fight for P2 is actually even more exciting. But yeah, I don't think anybody really wants that if you're close to P1. Piastri, how many points is he away from Norris? 40... 30... No, 40. No. Piastri... 20. No, he's 20 points away from Charles Leclerc. And he's 44 points away from Norris. Yeah. Still doable. So how's everybody in the chat? I'm not seeing many more new chats coming. And Daphne says, sorry, sprint races still this year. Yeah. You said spring races and I'm thinking, spring? It's autumn. Okay, so the next thing I have prepared is, let me see, this can go, the standings in the constructors, because that's really exciting. There's definitely 3 teams still in the running for that. Red Bull Racing has 446, and then 8 points behind them is McLaren. Now, McLaren might not outscore Red Bull tomorrow, with Norris being in the position the way he is. But then Ferrari could score a win and maybe a 4th place. They would get very close to Red Bull as well. And they might overtake the 2nd place again from McLaren. This is a proper season. Like, I don't know if anybody is excited for the constructors. I think it's interesting because I actually don't mind if Red Bull loses the constructor title, because it gives them more wind tunnel time. So actually a P3 in the constructors would suit the car for next year, or even the wind tunnel time they have for the year after that. Yeah, Mercedes is too far back. They're over 150 points away from Red Bull, so they're out of the question. So let me go to the chat. Gentili says Lando should finish 2nd. Well, he has a faster car than the Ferrari cars. Then again, not in qualifying today. Well, we don't know what he could have done in Q3. And Windmolenjongen says Max knows how to win the championship now. Everything after 2021 has been Schumacher clinical calculation. He knows precisely where he is, both on track and in the greater scheme of things. Yeah, Adrian Newey talked about that, how drivers like Max Verstappen have this extra headspace, extra RAM in their head to process what's happening in the rest of the race. They're driving these cars at God knows what speed, and they're looking at screens, knowing exactly what other times are being driven and all that. It's really amazing. See, when I'm driving my car, I can't listen to Samantha, let alone, calculate where other drivers are. Then again, I'm a terrible driver, so maybe that's it. At the end of the season, Max will have 2 championships without the best car overall. Has any other driver ever done that? Now, that's a good one, actually. I'm going to tweet about that later. Um, yeah, I know what you mean. 2 championships in a car that didn't win the constructors. Okay. Victor says yes. Schumacher did it. Did he do it with Benetton? Uh, did Benetton twice not get the constructors? That's interesting. Right. So the constructors championship. McLaren 8 points away. Ferrari is 31 points away from Ferrari. Yeah, Mercedes is out of the question. They're out of the running. So yeah, really exciting times. So I can turn this one off. So guys, let us talk about tomorrow. What kind of race are we expecting? I'm thinking about 2 things that could happen. I'm thinking it could be one of those races where they just start and everybody's really careful and it'll play out strategically. The cars on the track, after about 10 laps, you'll know what the pace of each individual car is. I know Verstappen will get ahead of Perez. I don't know if he'll get Russell because he's in P4, I think. And then there's Sainz. He usually drops off a little bit, especially compared to Leclerc. Then there's Piastri. He'll probably not keep up with Leclerc either. So, with tire degradation and stuff. So yeah, if I'm thinking about that, then I actually think a podium for Max and Russell is in the cards. So if I do a prediction, and guys, I want you to do a prediction as well. My prediction is Leclerc win, Max P2, Russell P3. That's it. That would be an amazing result for Max. Gentili says Max should be careful with Osama bin Russell. That's true. He drove a hole in his car last year in the sprint race. But yeah, I think Russell is careful enough now. He knows that Max is in a title battle, and he doesn't want to be the guy that destroys Max's race. I don't think. For his public relations. Or it could be a race where freaking Colapinto puts it in the wall after being in a brilliant qualifying position. After a year and a half of Logan Sargent driving that Williams car, never getting into Q3, Colapinto does it in his second race. Now, he's probably benefiting from the mishaps of Norris and the Williams car being further developed. But still, he did it. And that was especially impressive because he binned it during FP1, which is not good for your self-confidence. And who else? Who else was impressive in qualifying? Definitely not Daniel Ricciardo. I think he's out. I think next week in Singapore, it'll come out that he's going to be replaced. And then definitely not impressive was Lance Stroll. I tweeted that even Adrian Newey building a supercar won't save Stroll from being mid. I see there's more chats. Win Moleongen has retracted a message. Okay. And Vega says third for Checo. The only multiple wins. Lando second and Behrman third. Wow. Okay. And where does Max finish? And where does Norris finish? What's happening with the championship, Vegas? Tell me. Hey, there's Hank. Hello, Hank. Russell has nothing to lose. Well, that's a good point as well. But then again, would he want that on his shoulders? The guy that ruined Max's championship? I don't know. And Gentili says, remember Nick de Vries' first race in F1? Let's wait and see with the new guy. Well, that's true, especially in Williams. That car is made for long straights. Lidmolen says, Liam Lawson in 2025. I hope so. I like Liam. Good, healthy-looking blonde kid. We don't have too many of those. Okay, so what else did I prepare? Well, I prepared the schedule for the rest of the season, and we can pick out the races that benefit or where certain teams will do better than other teams, right? So here's the calendar. Here's the calendar, right? So next up, Singapore. Now, Singapore is a sure win for Max Verstappen. You know, that's a definite 1-2. Red Bull has been brilliant in Singapore. I'm just kidding, obviously. They're really crap there. Especially with the bumps and uneven track. And it's pretty much their Achilles heel. And yeah, if he can do a proper damage limitation there, finishing, I don't know, P5, P6, then that would be a good one. For the United States, for COTA, I think Red Bull will come up with a few upgrades that will bring them closer to McLaren and Ferrari again. And hopefully, with this young team not being led by Newey anymore, they can still sort it all out for the rest of the season. And then there's Mexico. I'm not sure what team would suit Mexico. Like, Max has won it plenty of times. But let's give that one to Perez then. You know, to win his home race. That would be nice. Then there's Brazil, which is usually a bit of a parade, isn't it? With overtakes on that at the end of that one straight, just like Lewis Hamilton did in 2021. They're all pretty. They're hard to predict, those tracks. Las Vegas is a street track. Max has won that as well, that first time. Qatar in really hot circumstances. What can I say about that? And then Abu Dhabi. Hopefully by Abu Dhabi time the championship is settled. Yeah, guys. So what do you think about all these individual races? Who do you guys think those races will go to? You guys can think about it, and then I'll read out a few chats. Yes. Vegas says cafe. I don't know what that means. What that's referring to. And Daphne says Verstappen will be third or fourth, Piastri second or first, but Norris 8 or 9 maybe. Okay, well that's a result for Max. And Hank says statistics don't care about circumstances. The English media won't mention it that often anyway. No, but these guys play padel sometimes with each other. You know, Max and Charles, Max and George are pretty good with each other normally. Just that one time they were not so happy with each other. Just one time. Max called him a dickhead. Vegas says COTA is quick this year. I can't read it here. The hottest I ever there this year. Oh, my hottest laps ever there this year. Oh, were you racing yourself? Yes? Cool. Gentili says, I wonder if Red Bull will win any race. Well, that just depends on how good the upgrades are. Like, if you see how fast they were last year, then maybe if the balance is corrected again and they've sorted out the niggles, then they might be okay again. Hank says Las Vegas is a start-stop circuit, so plenty of overtaking opportunities. Okay. Right, so Singapore. Who's going to win Singapore? I've got Leclerc. United States. Okay, I've got Norris for the United States then. Mexico. Dunno. Brazil. I think Leclerc. Las Vegas. Leclerc. Qatar. Max. And Abu Dhabi when the championship's done. Also Max. And Vegas says Hamilton loves Singapore. And Kota. Max has Vegas figured out. Relax, go fast. Okay. I think that's a good advice for any race. Oh boy, that went quickly. I went through everything that I prepared. We'll just have a normal chat then. But what are we feeling about this season so far? In a way, it's a pity that Red Bull and Verstappen were so good at the start of the season. Or McLaren wasn't there yet and Ferrari. That would have been amazing if it all started equally. Samantha says, I always laugh when Hamilton says Brazil is kind of a home race for him. Yeah. And then he tweets in Spanish. That was also very clever. And Windmolenjongen says the RB20 will be sorted for Brazil. And he says it's a good season. It is a good season. So maybe it's fun if we start talking about the 2025 season. I reckon that the teams will be much closer to each other starting the 2025 season. I think they all reached the limits of, these regulations. And I think from race to race, from situation to situation, the winner will come out. Now, if Max has a car to fight, I think he'll score the most points consistently. And he'll even win the 2025 championship. And that's when he'll say goodbye to Red Bull. And then he'll join Fernando Alonso in Aston Martin. And he'll be reunited with Adrian Newey and Honda. And I'd like that. I want to see Max in a different outfit. With all the scandals of Red Bull, I think I'm a little bit done with them. I'm grateful for everything they've given Max. But sometimes you need to move on. And I'm ready to move on to Aston Martin. Samantha, I'm borrowing your cap. That's really tight. Is your head that small, Samantha? Cheapers. I'm going to read a few messages. Daphne says, Gentiles, doesn't matter only how many points Red Bull lose, but how many McLaren points wins. And Samantha says, yeah. And Hank says, Samantha, ha ha ha. And Gentili says, yeah, Samantha, best fans in the world, which he says at every race. That's not true, Richard. He says that at every race he's on the podium, which is not very often anymore. And Vega says, can Max get his 8th this year? Oh, wait, that's Sir Lewis. Hi, Hank. Someone says, yes, but it was only on a little tight because of the wind. It was on a little tight because of the wind. I can do my freestyling here. Yo, Max is for the win. It'll give me a grin. And I'll take it on the chin. Samantha uses my pen. I watched this YouTuber called Typical Gamer. And he does that when he's playing Fortnite. He just puts a tune on and he just riffs on it. That's funny. But I'm a little too old for that. Hello, PSTM. Top 10 movie betrayals. No, but I've got all kinds here. Here, I've got a blast from the past here. Do you remember the good old days of Alpha Tauri? That was a better name than freaking B Corp, MasterCard, Visa, Lola thingy. Right, so let's go to the 2025 season. It's anybody's, isn't it? McLaren is really good. Ferrari's really good. Mercedes is making progress. Red Bull has been good for 3 years. I think it's going to be a four-way fight. I think it's too early for Aston Martin. Although, Adrian Newey, this is a question for you guys. Okay. Adrian Newey is not allowed to do any work until March next year. Right? But the new regulations come out the 1st of January in 2025. Do you think someone will bring the new regulations over to Adrian Newey so he can have a look at them, even though he's not allowed to do any work? Vidmolen says 2025 will be epic bands. Yes, the bands, the good old bands will be epic. Gentili says Wiminem. Wim Shady. Will the real Wim Shady please stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up. Hank says the new technical department of McLaren is this year. No cap skibbity toilet, says Samantha. Yeah, I've got that Riz. That Ohio Riz. I thought that triangle McLaren has with what do you call him? Rob Marshall, Andrea Stella. Then there was this guy Sanchez, who came from Ferrari but then left to Audi. Who else have I got? I made a video about it, but I forgot about it. Yeah, Vegas. You know the Generation Alpha kids that are born after 2010. They've developed this kind of language with words like skibbity and cap and Riz. And then when something is bad, it's Ohio. When something is weird. So, just for your information. Okay, Hank says this year, for the first year, they work together. Okay. Right, so they should be improving as well then. Interesting. Yeah, and Ferrari. How do you think Ferrari will fare with beautiful fast driver Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton? How do you think that battle will go? I don't think it's going to be much of a battle, because if you see how George Russell, with being unfortunate all the time, is actually beating him most of the time, especially in quali. I think Charles Leclerc is going to destroy Lewis Hamilton. There could be a video in that, and I'm not saying that because Jason Hassett said that today. He's got family over, that's why he's not in the chat. Samantha says, I always put weird with Indiana because of the program Erie, Indiana. Okay, can we please stick with Formula 1 now, please? And Richard says, I imagine Hamilton's meltdowns with the we are checking and slow button on. Yeah, the strategy team and Lewis Hamilton, that's going to be a great combination as well, isn't it? Um, we are thinking plan B. What do you think, Lewis? I don't know, man. You tell me. Okay, we are going for plan B. And then 5 laps into plan B. Oh, man. You shouldn't have given me these medium tires, man. These tires suck, man. And Hank says, Ferrari is Leclerc's team. Not much hope for Hamilton. And Vegas says, my second home is in Indiana. We're here now, boring, not eerie. Okay. Still, I'd love to go to all these places, boring or not. And how do you think the Piastri Norris combination will go if Oscar Piastri improves even a little bit more next season? You know, if he gets a hold of these tires, gets completely used to the car, then he's going to start out qualifying Norris more often. And then, yeah, the fight is on between those two. And I think, you know, the whole play of number one driver, number two driver, that's going to play a big part in all these teams. And I think Mercedes with Antonelli and Red Bull with Perez and Verstappen, they're going to benefit from having a proper number one and a number two dynamic in the team. Whereas McLaren with Norris and Piastri, they're gonna steal points from each other. And the same with Lewis Hamilton and Leclerc. I don't think you can ask Hamilton to hold up drivers behind him to give Leclerc a win. I don't think he'll do it. He'll not get himself into that situation. I think he'd rather DNF than do that. Samantha says, love that, Vegas. Sometimes boring is good. And Hank says, Piastri will butcher Norris. That would be a sight to see. Oh, God. Can you imagine the cool-down rooms with Norris losing 3-4 wins in a row to Piastri? I mean, he's sulking now. It's going to be way worse. And Richard says, okay, in 2025, Piastri and Norris will have at least one crash together. That's a good prediction. Yeah, I can totally see that happening. And Vegas says, it's great. Racing mecca of sorts, and I can make all the noise I want. It's also closer to the GPs we attend. And there's a Zobbel Point. And Zobbel Point says, Norris Piastri, let them fight like McLaren has always done, like Senna Prost, Hamilton Alonso. And you're right, this is beneficial for Max. Thank you. It's the first time I'm ever hearing I'm right. It's a good day today. Still liking the music, people? So yeah, those are the teams. Where do we think Aston Martin will go in 2025? Still P5 in the standings? Or do you think Newey will have a look at the car, glance over it and say, change the inlets a bit there. That Coke bottle area there is a little bit too narrow. Work on that while I work on the 2026 car. Could happen. It's something he's very good at. And then 2026, oh my God, those new regulations. It's hard to say. Gentili says, I vaguely hear some sort of beat. Is this the music you are referring to? Yes? It's very loud here. Samantha says, but is he allowed? What are you referring to, Samantha? My wife calls people when I jam to imaginary music. Um, and then you get a white coat on with your arms tied behind your back. I can hear it really clearly. Oh, Samantha, you mean Newey giving tips? Well, he's allowed to give Aston Martin tips after March because he's working there then. Did you guys hear about Christian Horner saying that they celebrated Newey's signing too early because he was still under contract with Red Bull? I think it's pretty typical for someone who left his pregnant wife to go with a Spice Girl. It's a bit of gossip, but that's what I've heard. I think that was a bit premature, wasn't it? Vegas says Newey is persona non grata until 2025. Yeah, he's not going to races anymore. Yeah, it's still a shame that Red Bull, after 18 years, that they're parting that in that way. But you know, the signing was on the wall. Newey has always left teams where he wasn't happy. But sure, we talked about that last week. Right, guys. I'm through all my topics. We can keep this a shorter live stream, unless you guys have some interesting topics you wanna pop up. I already did my predictions for tomorrow. A Leclerc win, Max P2, and Russell P3. I'm gonna write it down. 1, Leclerc, 2, Max, 3, Russ. Windmolen says Newey has previous in the philandering stakes, mate. Yeah, he has a stake in the team now, which is something that he always wanted. And Samantha says, I'm happy. Oh, Gentiles, that was so good of Newey. Richard says Newey also called out the British bias at Sky, which I respect. Yeah, he said in that long podcast that I've watched that Sky Sports can be pretty nationalistic, even though they have broadcasting all over the world. And they either put people on a pedestal or they knock them off the pedestal, which they've done with Max and Sebastian Vettel, which he thought was a little unfair. He had some gems in that interview, saying that Mercedes sort of knocked themselves out of the game by sticking with the whole "we were robbed" idea, and psychologically they messed themselves up. He also said that first he thought that Lewis Hamilton had committed a professional foul against Max, but then later he said that was a bit too harsh. I don't agree with that. I think Lewis knew exactly what he was doing at Silverstone. That the outcome would have been this bad for Max and that good for him, that's something he probably didn't expect. But he knew what he was doing when he dove into that gap and then didn't steer in. Hank says Red Bull is the first team where Newey was for 28 years. Now he was there from 2006. Hank, and that's 18 years because it's 2024. And he wasn't at Williams long because they didn't stick to the agreements they had. And he wasn't at McLaren for very long because he didn't get the freedom from Ron Dennis. But yeah, I mean, that you know that Newey is like that. That he's very firm when he has to. Samantha says, I feel British bias thing is mentioned more and more. Yep. ever since I started making videos about it. And Hank says most Brits don't even know they are biased. Well, that's true, because some of them, they only see Sky Sports F1, they only read their papers, and when they're on Facebook in their funny groups, they only see people that are like-minded. So yeah, who's gonna tell them? You know, the lower ranks of the British people. That's why I get so many people protesting. People saying, "Yeah, well, you're Dutch, so you've got Dutch bias." I think, yeah, I know that, but I don't influence a whole country now, do I? My reach is about this small. And someone says most Brits are delusional about being delusional. Well, that's true. I mean, I don't think there's a nation that can hold on to grudges as well as the English do. Like, I've read messages when Diego Maradona died, and people said, "Haha, good on him because he's a fucking cheater because he made a handball in '86." They just don't forget, and then seeing what they've sort of done worldwide with their empire, they should be glad all these other countries don't hold grudges the way they hold grudges to other people. And Hank says Brits are not exposed to other languages. No, that's true as well. They're on that island, and everybody speaks English. They have to. And Gentili says Ziggo were biased. Viaplay isn't really. Well, that's true. Like Jack Ploy and Olaf Mol, they were totally camp Max, and that's why Jack Ploy fell out with Toto Wolff in 2021, and before that, Ziggo fell out with Renault and Cyril Abiteboul because they were so biased and they were knocking down these engines. Now, it was all true. It was all true, but you know, if you're a journalist, then you need to stay in the middle, even if the driver is from the same country. And Vegas says Facebook's still a thing. Damn, I thought that died off. No, Facebook is still a thing, but it's more for people like my parents. You know, the 70, 80-year-olds. And Samantha says, shh, Vegas, I love my Facebook. I already lost my Bebo. And Hank says, the hand of God. Yeah, exactly. Samantha says, that was the original Facebook. It was cool. You could put your favorite music clips pinned at the top. Okay. Right, guys. I almost made it to an hour. So if nobody has another topic, then I'm going to log out soon. Let me see how I'm going to do this without being too abrupt. I wonder if I should press stop streaming or end broadcast. I'm going to try stop streaming. Right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this live stream. I hope you had fun. I wish you all a wonderful race tomorrow. And I'll see you all in the next one. Take care now. Doei doei.